Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick, and we're continuing to go through this film series I put together on the life of Saint Jude Thaddeus, the apostle of the Assyrian Christians. And part of the story of Saint Jude Thaddeus is the legend of King Abgar. And this is really an important legend, very important part of the story of St. Jude Thaddeus. And probably the earliest account that we have of this is the story that was found in the writings of Eusebius, the father of church history. So Eusebius was, he wrote the ecclesiastical history. And what he does is he continues from where the book of Acts leaves off, and he goes to his own day, the story of the church, the continuing Acts of the apostles, all the way to the conversion of Constantine. So he went to the city of Edessa, which according to tradition, Thomas, the apostle Thomas, sent St. Jude Thaddeus to evangelize. This is the city of Edessa. Back then it was a city of Syria. Now it's in Turkey. And something else that's important about this is Syrian Christians, Aramaic Christians, claim Edessa as their the mother of their church, the mother city of their church. And it is because they use a form of Aramaic, the language of Jesus Christ, but the dialect they use in their religious services is from Edessa. And it's called Classical Syriac, the dialect which originated very close to the language that Jesus spoke, but this is a form of that language spoken in the city of Edessa. Now, Armenians also claim that King Abgar is Armenian, but when you had these royal families, a lot of times they would intermarry. So we see certain royal families, you have these different kingdoms which would have diplomatic marriages where one royal family would marry into another, so that's probably why we see the Armenians claiming King Abgar as one of their own. But Edessa is an Aramaic city and the source of the Aramaic Christian tradition. So the story is there's a king named Abgar, the ruler of Edessa, and he was diseased, and he heard the story of Jesus and his miracles, and he sent for Jesus to come and heal him of the disease of which he suffered. The legend, which is recorded in the writings of Eusebius, is that there was a Syrian king in Edessa named King Abgar, and that he was suffering from a grievous disease, and yet he heard of the miracle power of Jesus of Nazareth. And he sent an ambassador to find Jesus, to ask that Jesus would come to his kingdom and heal him of the disease of which he suffered. The ambassadors came and found Jesus, and then Jesus said to them, well, I can't go to Edessa. However, because the time of my revelation, my atonement and death has come. It's time for me to fulfill my destiny. However, on a later time, I will send one of my apostles, and he will come and bring life to you and your people. So Jesus, soon afterwards, he dies, he rises again, and on the day of Pentecost, by the power of the Holy Spirit, Thomas is inspired to send St. Jude Thaddeus to go to Edessa, and he goes there, he preaches to the king, heals the king is converted, and he preaches to the people. This is found in Eusebius. Eusebius claimed that he went to the city and saw the letter of King Abgar. There's another legend, which is a legend of the Mandalian, which was an image of the holy face of Jesus. And this has become a very important tradition among Eastern Christians. The relic called the Mandalian, which is, it seems to have disappeared. But some people believe that the Mandalian, this mysterious image of the face of Christ, is actually the same thing as what we know as the Shroud of Turin. Other people dispute that, but that is a theory. If the Shroud of Turin is genuine, where did it come from? And there is these strong traditions that there was this image that bore the face of Christ. I'll talk about that more in depth in upcoming programs. But in the earliest sources, it's described as a painting. However, in other early sources, it's described as an image not made by hands. Right? This is that Jesus' cloth was placed to his body or his face, and an impression was left on it. So there were two sacred relics connected to Jesus Christ in Edessa. One was the correspondence between King Abgar and Jesus, the letter of Abgar to Jesus and Jesus' response. According to the account, Jesus didn't write a letter, he gave an oral response, which was later written down. And of course, we have the Aramaic Apostolic Trilogy. You have the Acts of Thomas, the Doctrine of Thaddeus, or Doctrine of Addai, as it's called in Aramaic, and then you have the Acts of Mari, the disciple of Thaddeus. So this is like a trilogy, and the Doctrine of Addai and the Acts of Mari mention the story of the letter of King Abgar, and the Acts of Mari mention the mandalion, or the holy image of the face of Christ, of the holy face, this holy image that was kept in Edessa. And this is a very important relic, and what had happened is the Byzantines basically smuggled the mandolin out of the city of Edessa. And that's where, it goes to Constantinople, which is Istanbul today, or which was originally called Byzantium. And we don't know exactly what happened to it. There was the sacking of Byzantium by the Crusaders, and so the theory is that perhaps the mandolin was taken and found its way to Europe, where it's known as the Shroud of Turin. But that's disputed. It's a theory. Maybe it's correct. Maybe it's not. We won't know for certain. But I want to mention something in this book. This is Christians in Asia before 1500. And it mentions that in Edessa, you had these different Christian sects. You had the Melkites, that's the Roman Orthodox or the Greek Orthodox Church. And then you have the Jacobite Church, which is the Syrian Orthodox Church. So it says, at Edessa itself, two major Christian groups remained. That which was committed to Chalcedon and became known as the Melkites. Melkites basically means the king's men, referring to the emperor of the Eastern Roman Emperor, the Byzantine Empire, the Byzantine Emperor. Chalcedon was a church council that came out with a creed saying that Jesus Christ is fully God and fully man. And there's a lot of argument about that. These are Christological controversies. And once it was established, the doctrine of the Trinity, that we have the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the question is, how is Jesus God and man at the same time? These churches in the East had deep, acrimonious debates and divisions about this issue, which is never resolved. It's not really resolved to this day. But the Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, affirmed the Council of Chalcedon, and so the Christians who followed that were called Melkites because they followed the official teaching of the emperor. And that which adopted Syrian monophysitism expressed this to the Jacobite Church. Basically, they're saying that Jesus has only one nature, and that's a divine nature. That could be oversimplifying of their position, but that's the way it's traditionally understood. Nestorians said there's two natures or persons, that Jesus is God and man. And then Cyril said, no, Jesus doesn't have two natures, he has one divine nature. And then the debate's like, well, Jesus seems to have a true human nature according to the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So then and then you had the Council of Chalcedon, which said Jesus does indeed have, they condemned Nestorius as a heretic, but they affirmed that there are two natures. So this is a big controversy in the early church, and I'm going to get into all the details of it right now. So the Jacobite or Syrian Orthodox Church had majority support in Edessa. It is some interest to note that the most prized relic of the latter group was the Jesus letter to King Abgar. So the Syrian Orthodox, they treasured the letter of King Abgar to Jesus and Jesus' response. But the Byzantines, the so-called Melkites, they prized above else the portrait of Jesus. And as I mentioned, eventually they stole it and they carried it to the city of Constantinople. It says the preferences themselves being a reflection of the respective theologies espoused. It may be that the Monophysite preferences were also behind the refusal of Edessa to support the rebellion against the Emperor Zeno in the last quarter of the 5th century. The city's later history we shall return to below. So, as we get into the story of King Abgar and Jude Thaddeus, we'll explore these two relics in depth in upcoming programs. And I also want to remind viewers out there that I have my 2 books on the life of St. Jude Thaddeus. The St. Jude Thaddeus storybook, and based on our docudrama, and then the book based on the film that I made with my brother Josiah called it's called St. Jude Thaddeus and the Legend of the Shroud. I think these books came out very well, and I recommend them to you, and you can support me and my work by purchasing these books and just sharing the message of the gospel through these books with other people. So stay tuned for upcoming programs as we dig deeper into the story of St. Jude Thaddeus and examine these interesting relics attached to the name of this great apostle of Jesus of Nazareth.